it's less than
Okay,
the another.
okay. I kind of have I haven't I mean I am having like kind of the same problem on my left ear. And you know what? I have never thought about that probability of the because I also had suffered that sickness a lot when I was a child, but I have never made the relationship between both the sickness and the hearing problem. But okay, thank you, Adam. Thanks a lot. And Sarah, what about you, dear?
Well, for me, I think the worst disability could be blind, being blind,
Mhm.
uh, and maybe can see or talk because, like, it's a for me it's a very important part of the human to communicate with the others. So for me, that's the worst.
Okay, very good. So here we have two different disabilities. The first one is being blind. The other one is being mute, which is the inability to speak, right? Good, excellent. It's pretty important to talk. Okay, so in this case, my dear people, we're talking about like our body and some different alternatives that we have and different consequences that we have of different conditions, right? But if you notice in the three questions, we never used if, which is one of the main like clauses or the main particles that we normally use when we talk about conditions, right? But we avoided using if in all of this, right? Why? Well, there is like other different options to use, different from if for not always repeating if, right? So if we want to describe like a lot of different conditions, we're going to find other different options in order to replace if and not only using one final structure, right? So the idea is that we can give some diversity to our text or to our speech, right? And in that way, we can replace if, which is a particle with which is repeated a lot of times, in and repeat it and replace it, sorry, with other different tools, right? Other different resources. So here, for example, in the first question, we replace it with should, right? And then we say, is a modal verb replacing the if? Yes. And here, for example, we use it with the expression assuming or assuming that. Here, for example, we replace it with the inversion with had and the verb in past participle. So today, we're going to focus a little bit on how can we replace if, yes? How other options or what other options do we have in order to replace it, okay? So first of all, we have the conditional inversion, okay? Mrs. Emily, help me to read this paragraph, my dear.
Okay, in a normal language, uy, espera, ya. In a normal language, if is often replaced by inverting the conditional order for making it sound more formal. In situations such as contracts, legal documents, manuals, among other types of official communications.
Very good, excellent. So especially in verbal language, when we have this kind of text or this kind of communications in formal language, like such as contracts, legal documents, manuals, and any other different type of official communications, like in a mail or something like that, we're going to find that if is replaced using these kind of structures. Of course, depending the conditional, right? Are going to have the possibility to use not only if, but using any other resources. So, Mr. Daniel, help me to read the example over here, my friend.
Should the patient want to have a surgery done, they must count on parental approval.
Exactly, very good. So here we have, should the patient want to have surgery done, they must count on parental approval. So it's a condition, right? But this is a real condition. Yeah, it's a condition that the patient has before getting any surgery practiced, right? So, for example, Sarah, are you a minor?
Sorry.
Are you a minor? I mean, are you younger than 18?
No.
How old are you? Say
18.
18. Well, so just in here, for example, in Colombia, if a patient wants to have surgery, they must, as an obligation, they must count with the approval of their parents, right? It's a condition. It's always on the contract that you sign before getting a plastic surgery practiced, right? But they don't introduce it with if. What they do is that they introduce it using the modal verb as a way, as like a condition for getting that contract completed, right? So in the case, for example, here, this example, it means like if the patient want to have then they have to complete with these conditions, right? So look that, yeah, the structure is exactly the same. First, we have the condition, and then we have the consequence or the result, right? So, but should, especially, it's used for replacing real conditions. It means first and zero condition. Ready? So instead of using if, what I'm going to do is to replace that if and put should, and that's it. Then, of course, the verb is going to be in infinitive because this is a modal verb. So, you know, as this is a modal verb, the verb is going to be infinitive. Should you want to change your body? Yes. Then, comma, because that is the end of the condition, and then we separate it from the consequence, which is the next part. You must start by changing your habits. Remember that the second part in the consequence, well, depends. If it's a first conditional, it's going to have will or can or possibly this kind of modal verbs of obligation, right? And if it's zero conditional, normally we have simple present and that's it, right? But of course, this should is used for replacing more commonly the first conditional and not so commonly the zero conditional, right? So in that case, the second part, the consequence of that condition is going to be expressed with must, also with will, also with can, depending, right? Depending if it's an obligation, if it's a possibility, or if it's a prediction, right? So anyway, another example might be, should you want to change your body, you will start having problems with your, let's say, with your muscles, something like that, right? So it's just a matter of replacing the first part for not using always the same structure, right? That's regarding the first conditional. It means for real conditions. If I want to replace the if in the second conditional for unreal conditions, we're going to use where, yeah? Where as a way of changing if, right? Like in the kind similar, something similar to the subjunctive that we saw 2 weeks ago or the last week, if I'm not wrong. Yes, so it's using this word for showing that it's an unreal situation, yeah? So, but it's an unreal situation in the present, good? So in that case, it's just replacing if for where, and then it's going to be the verb in to and the verb in infinitive. Before, the verb was in ed, like in past. Because remember that when we talk about the subjunctive part for the present, we use the verb in past, right? But here it's replacing that verb in past for simply to and the verb in infinitive. So it would be, the original sentence, it would be, if a person wanted a rhinoplasty, they would have to pass over many tests. Now, in the contract or in the formal way, it would be, where a person to want a rhinoplasty, they would have to pass over many tests. Sounds kind of strange, I know, but that is like the most formal way to do it. That's why it sounds so strange, because we normally don't find these kind of structures like in every place. It's just specifically for different kind of contexts, especially for formal context, okay? So where a person to want a rhinoplasty, they would have to pass over many tests. Of course, since this is the second conditional, our consequence is going to be described with would, because it's an imaginary consequence, right? So they would have to pass over many tests. This is for real conditions. This is for unreal, imaginary, hypothetical situations, right? And finally, when we talk about hypothetical situations in the past, yes, we use the third condition. In that case, normally we use if, and then we use the verb in past participle. Yeah, and past participle in past perfect, sorry. Yeah. What we do in the inversion of the conditionals is passing that had, yeah, to the front, to the position that was previously occupied by if, right? In that case, we're going to remove the if and introduce had, which was the auxiliary of the past perfect before, right? So the first sentence would be, if you had mentioned your medical conditions, we wouldn't have signed the contract. That's like the normal way to do it with past perfect. If you had mentioned your medical conditions, but what I can do now, it's just replacing if using had, moving had to the first position. Then I said, had you mentioned your medical conditions, comma, we would have signed the contract. Ready? Remember, this is the third conditional. Past hypothetical situations, yeah, with a condition sometimes in the past, but sometimes in the present, right? So in that case, we wouldn't have signed the contract. Modal verb would, or sometimes could, or sometimes might, right? But it's a hypothetical condition in the past. So we use have and the verb in past participle. In this case, it's negative, wouldn't. Yes, wouldn't have signed the contract. Ready? So guys, in this case, the idea is that we can use this kind of inversions in the conditionals, as I said before, in a specific context, a contract, a formal mail, yeah, I don't know, like a manual, for example. How could it be like described in a manual? Let's say, if the device, let's say, the device doesn't turn on, comma, you must restart it. Now, let's say you must plug in, right? That is the normal sentence with if. Of course, is the first conditional. Yes, it's a real possibility. So how could you replace the if in this case? What tool, what resource would you use in order for replacing that?
Where?
Danny, but it's a real or unreal situation. Is this something that it's possible to happen or not really?
It's a possible situation.
Exactly. So what do you think? What do we use for real conditions?
Well, you are right. It would be should.
Exactly. Very good. So in that case, we'd have to replace that one for should the device, of course, here we don't use doesn't, but should the device not turn on, yes, you must plug it in. Could be, yeah. Or you must charge it before something like that. But replacing the if with should, yeah. It's a real possibility. And this is a sentence that could perfectly come in a manual, for example, right? When you are using the device for the first time, comes with certain instructions. And this is like one of the possible mistakes or errors to have. And they come with this recommendation. If you have that problem, do that, right? So in that case, as it is like a formal way, like a formal document, yeah, probably it is going to come like that, right? Other different possibility would be replacing something similar, but with the second or third condition, all right? For example, do you know what is the meaning of, or what is a leasing contract? What is that?
Licitar un contrato.
Yeah, the leasing is some kind more like a renting action, right? So what you use when you gotta rent a place, apartment, house, or something like that, right? Sometimes these kind of contracts, they have some clauses in which they describe different conditions for some punishments or for some fines that they can have, right? So for example, here they say, if the tenant is the person who is renting the apartment, yes. If the tenant made or any changes, they would remove them before leaving. Yeah, so it's a hypothetical condition that in the case that the tenant makes a change to the apartment, they would have to remove it before leaving. Yes, of course, it's a clause of a contract, so it's kind of a formal context. Yeah, how would you replace this instead of using if tenant made?
where in that
Aha.
case.
Exactly, Danny. So where and no more?
To
Where the tenant made to make
To make, very good. So were the tenant to make any changes, they would remove them before leaving, right? So it's kind of replacement. But how did I know that it was were and to make? Ah, because it was an unreal situation. Actually, the verb was in past. So I can see, okay, the verb was in past. Yeah, so the most logical thing is that it's going to be a hypothetical situation, or you mean second condition, right? So it's just as easy as it is. Guys, questions about it of these inversions? They are not so popular and they are not like used all the time, but they are really important, especially when you are checking, when you are going over formal documents at work, with a contract or any other different kind of formal document. Questions about these inversions, or are they fine?
It's clear, teacher.
Yes, no problem. Sarita, Danny, Adam, no questions?
It's
Sorry,
clear.
It's
I have a
clear.
question. I have a question.
Tell me, Sarita, tell me.
So the third conditional is just for past hypothetical, or I mean, I can do it like in this way, like have.
Uh-huh. So yes, the third conditional, it's a hypothetical situation in the past. Yes, something
Okay.
that it never happened that way, but we are imagining what would have happened if the situation had been in that way. For example, my dear Sarah, in what school did you study?
And the name of the school,
Yes, it could be a fake name,
El Cardenal.
whatever. Okay, so we are going to imagine that you didn't study in the Cardinal, but you studied in a public school. Yeah. So we start normally the third conditional using like if well, in that case, if Sarah had studied in a public school, yes, comma, she wouldn't have learned English. She wouldn't have learned English. Yeah. It never happened because actually you studied in the Cardinal School and then actually you learned English, right? So it's just a hypothetical situation in the past. It's imaginary, yeah. Normally we use it introducing if and the past perfect of the first clause, which is had and the verb in past participle, right? But in the inversion, what we're going to do is to take that had and put it in the position of if. So how would it be this sentence in the like inverted version of the sentence?
Okay. Now I understand. Thank you.
No worries. So the sentence would be like, had Sarah studied in a public school, she wouldn't have learned English, right? But
Okay.
this is something important, and thanks Sarah for reminding. But the third conditional usually has a consequence in the past. Here it's would have and the verb in past participle. Easy. But remember that sometimes it can be mixed with the second conditional. So sometimes we can have a hypothetical situation in the past with a consequence in the present. Yeah. So for example, we said that if she hadn't studied in, or if she had studied in a public school, she wouldn't speak so fluently now, right? This consequence is not in the past, it's in the present. So remember, if the consequence is in the present, we use would and the verb in infinitive. That's it. But if the consequence is in the past, we use would have and the verb in past participle. So that's how we use modal verbs in the past. Yeah. Third conditional can have both possibilities, like using a consequence in the present with this structure, or a consequence in the past, which is like normally it is with this structure. Okay, ready? That's like a little parenthesis there. Yes. Questions, difficulties there?
No, sir, it's clear.
Ready, guys. Okay. So now, a part of this inversion in modal and particles, we're going to have other possibility, which is using connectors different from if, but they have kind of the same function, but they are different, right? So we have connectors, for example, as provided that, supposing that, given that, yeah, which you can include or not, that, the particle that, or simply provided, supposing, assuming, given, yes. Also, for example, whether or not, assuming that, yes, or even others similar to that are unless, as long as, even if, only if, just in case, or on the condition that. Yeah, all of these adverbs are used for replacing if, but you know that they have a specific use. Each of them has a specific use, right? For example, Mr. Daniel, sorry, help me to read the first example over here.
As long as you want to watch your weight, you can eat less processed food.
Exactly. Less processed food, right? Good, excellent. So of course that originally it can be with if you want to watch your weight, you can eat less processed food, right? But then if I can include, if I want to be more specific about my intention, I said siempre y cuando, like as long as you want to watch your weight. Yes, so that's one possibility. Adam, please help me to read this one, my friend. Give a good example.
Given that you are having trouble to sleep, you must stop drinking coffee.
Very good. Given that you're having troubles to sleep, you must stop drinking coffee. So we are saying, given that it's like taking into account this information, the consequence is real, but taking into account that this information, similar to supposing that, providing that, yeah, on the condition that, right? And we have others, like for example, even if and whether or not, which they are kind of different. No, remember that when we use even if, whether or not, it's like it doesn't matter. No, it's a situation of irrelevance. When I say even if that happened or that doesn't happen, anyway, the condition is going to be real. Whether or not is exactly the same. When I say, for example, I don't know, whether you like it or not, you must think examples now. This is whether you like it or not. It's similar to even if you like it or even if you don't like it, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter this condition, the consequence is going to be real anyway. So there are a lot of possibilities. So there are a lot of different possibilities for replacing if, but we gotta find and we gotta choose the correct one depending on my intention. Yeah. If what I want is to emphasize something, then I have to use one. If I want to talk about a irrelevant condition, then I have to use others. Yes. Or if I want to talk about for example, negative possible situation, I have to use just in case, right? So guys, think on a condition about your body, like for example, what would you do if you have a discomfort? Yes. Or what would you do if you felt uncomfortable with your body, right? And use it or express that condition, but replace the if. Do not use if. Use any other of the possibilities with modal verbs or with these adverbs, with these connectors, but create an example based on that using something different from if. Okay? Think about it, think on the possibility, and tell.
Supposing that I were younger, I would do many things different.
Okay, very good, Danny. That's right. So in that case, supposing that I were, so he's using the past, not because it's in past, but because it's the second conditioner. It's kind of a hypothetical situation which is never going to be real, but it's a possibility, right? So it's like imaginary situations in the present. So it says, supposing that I were younger, I would do a lot of things different. Good. Let's.
You should think about the things you are going to say in classes, whether you like or not.
Okay, that is a good recommendation for our students, right? So you should think the things that you're going to tell in class, whether you like it or not. Maybe very.
¿Cuál era la pregunta, profe? Que es que se me traba el internet.
Don't worry, I mean, don't worry. No, it's just creating an example about your body or about any other kind of topic, but using something different from if. I mean, create one condition about what would you do, for example, if you feel uncomfortable, or what do you do when you feel sick, but not using if, using other different resource, okay? My dear Sarah, what about you?
I'm not sure if I'm doing well, but should you think about you say to the others, you could hurt anyone.
Once again, should you think about,
You say to others, you
oh,
could hurt like anyone.
okay, very good. Yes, because that is a real possibility, yeah? But I would change the could for can, because it's something more possible, right? So should you
Okay.
think about what you say to others, you can, should you not, wait a second, once again, should you not think about what you tell to the others, you can hurt someone, right? Great idea, very good, that's a good condition. Emmy, what about you, dear?
Maybe. Um, is as long as I finish my English course, I will have a more free time.
Very good. But as it is a real possibility, I wouldn't use would, but I would use will, because that's like a prediction. It's something that it's going to happen.
Ah, yes, yes.
Exactly. Great. So as long as you finish your English course, you will have a lot of free time, right? Good. Okay, guys. So, but remember that, of course, these changes are basically, or like mainly done in formal context, right? When you are just, speaking casually, well, continue using if and it's even easy. But these others are going to help me a lot when I want to specify my intention, when it's not so clear the condition, but it's not only just saying like, si esto pasa lo otro, sino solo si esto pasa o incluso si esto pasa, that is not exactly the same. It has like a different connotation. So that's why it is so important to introduce these kind of connectors for being more specific about my intention with that conditional. Ready? Bueno, people. So we're going to have here two examples. Yes, I would like it's just simple examples for you to like exemplify, to evidence how these options work in a real mail or in a real context, right? My dear Sarah, help me to read this text, this mail.
Dear Mr. Stevenson, in regard to your previous emails, should you suffer chronic headaches, you must get some examinations taken. It is important you take them as soon as possible, provided that migraines present 10% of the brain-related deaths in the country. Had you informed me before, we would have already taken those exams by now. I look forward to your reply. Dr. Reese.
Thank you, Sarita. So we have two different words here. Both of them are like sicknesses. With the first one, it's headache. Okay, head, like this is like the part of the body, head, and ache, which is like pain, synonym of pain. So your word using that's the word, and this one it's migraine. Ready? Muy bien, very good. So guys, in that case, in this mail, I have two conditionals, and none of them is using if, right? Can you identify the conditionals for me, please?
A had and should.
Exactly, very good. Let's do the first one. It says, should you suffer chronic headaches, you must get some examinations taken. Please, how would you do this, or how would you transform this conditional into the casual way, into the casual version?
If you suffer chronic headaches, you must get some examinations taken.
Perfect, very good. It's only only replacing should with if. If you suffer chronic headaches, you must get some examinations taken, right? The other one, as Emily said, it's had you informed me before, we would have already taken some exams by now. So how would you transform that into the casual version?
If you had informed me before, we would have already taken those exams by now.
Very good, Daniel. Very good. If you had informed me before, yes, it's using the third conditional. So it's if and then the past part, the past perfect. So this had is going to come here, and in this position, I introduce if. So if you had informed me before, blah, blah, blah. Here it's only replacing should with if, and that's it. No? So it would be the same. So we have two possibilities, the more formal way or the more casual way. Next example. Mr. Alan, help me to read this text, my friend.
Dear Mrs. Stevenson, in regard to your previous emails, we have found a place according to your specification. Nevertheless, should you want to close the deal, you must transfer the 50% of the total amount today. There will not be any change of business unless we identify the money on your accounts. On our accounts. We would proceed with the whole deal only on the condition that documents and the rest of the requirements are in order. We look forward to arranging a meeting at your earliest convenience. State Agent Reese.
Perfect, very good. Excellent. So in that case, we said we have other different like replacement for if, not only with the modal verbs, but also with some adverbs, right? It says, okay, we have found a place according to your specifications, nevertheless, and then we have the first condition. And now it says, should you want to close the deal, you must transfer the 50% of the total amount today. How would you transfer that one into the casual version?
If you want to close the deal, you must transfer the 15% of the total amount today.
Very good, guys. Excellent. So it's only using if, because it's the first condition of a real situation. So if you want to close the deal, you must transfer the 50% of the total amount today. Very good, right? Then they say there will not be any change of business unless we identify the money on our accounts. We have unless, which is of course a replacement for if. Yeah. How would you do that sentence? By using if. Of course, it's first conditional. We know that it's first conditional because the person is using will. So, but how would you do it? What would you change?
You could repeat the question, please?
Of course, we have this condition, which is there will not be any change on business unless we identify the money in our accounts, right? Then we have unless. We have to find a way to replace unless with if. Do you think it's only using if and that's it, or we have to change anything else?
If we don't identify the money on our accounts?
Yes, exactly, Danny. So in this case, we're gonna have to introduce because unless it's a negative, like a way of saying, like if this doesn't happen, then the other thing won't happen also, right? So in that case, we have unless we do not identify or we don't identify the money on our accounts, or there won't be any change on business. And the last one, the last condition says we will proceed with the whole deal only on the condition that, of course, it says only if, no? Only on the condition that documents and the rest of the requirements are in order. In that case, it's only replacing for if, and that's it, right? So take into account that, yeah, we have a lot of different conditions in this mail, but none of them is using if. So we always can find other different possibilities for replacing if and not making it so repetitive a text, right? Guys, question, what is the meaning of we look forward or look forward to?
Como si no me equivoco, era como adelantarse, prever o algo por el estilo.
Kind of, kind of similar, but not really. It's a very common expression at the end of mails. Like again, here it says, I look forward to. Here it says, I look forward to arranging. I look forward to your reply.
Como estar pendiente.
Yes, exactly. Like I stay attentive, I remain attentive to something, ready? So it's just that it's a very common expression, so I really recommend for you to like introduce it into your daily speech, okay? Bueno, guys, questions so far, difficulties on this part of the replacements of if, any ideas, any doubts?
No,
No,
teacher.
sir. It's clear. I only would like to ask about the email of the person who we need to contact in order to take the exam of the lingual skill English.
Mhm.
That's
We were going to talk about that, Danny. Entonces, so, guys, bueno, first I would like you to tell me how did you feel? What are your perceptions? What's your opinion at the end of the course that we are finishing today? You still have 1 week more because the course is going to end on August the 24th, right? So what are your perceptions? How did you feel? Did you feel that you improved your oral skills or at least your vocabulary? Or how have you felt along the course?
Pues en mi caso personal, ya saliendo un poco como el curso, pues ya hablando más en español. La verdad es que yo sí lo sentí muy bien. Yo sí sentí pues que el curso, principalmente lo que el curso hace, siento que es que a uno lo ayuda a reforzar esas partes en las cuales uno no está tal vez no es, ¿cómo decirlo? No es tal vez tan fuerte en ese aspecto del lenguaje, por ejemplo, pues yo hice con B1 y pues yo podía leer bien, tal vez llegar a escuchar oídos bien. Pero lo que a mí más se me dificultaba principalmente era escribir, era hablar. Y pues si bien todavía tengo que reconocer evidentemente que todavía hoy día sigo teniendo algunos problemas tal vez a la hora de hacer eso, pues sí he notado que han disminuido un poco, que ya cuento con más herramientas a la hora de realizar esa clase de actividades. Y
¿Aló?
pues también me gustaría agradecerle bastante a usted, profesor, porque pues usted durante todo el curso siempre se ha mostrado muy paciente, muy dispuesto a ayudarlo a uno en todo momento. Entonces, pues también le quería agradecer todo el tiempo que nos ha prestado a mí y a mis compañeros.
Gracias, Dani. Muchas gracias, mi hermano. Thanks a lot, man. Mrs. Emily, I would like to listen something from you. You never miss class. I think that you were in every single class, similar to Daniel, that you both came to almost 100% of my classes. So what do you think, Emily? How did you feel? Spanish, English, as you prefer.
Muy bien, profe, la verdad, o sea, fue un proceso eh, entretenido, chévere porque, o sea, sí, yo también inicié en nivel B1 y pues es que la parte de la que, o sea, todavía siento que se me sigue dificultando un poquito, pues es la gramática, ¿no? Porque como
Ujú.
decía mi compañero, pues si uno podía hablar un poquito y escuchaba tal cosa y leer, pero siempre era como la parte de la gramática y pues tratar de, como de organizar bien las palabras y poderlo escribir bien. Y sí, gracias al curso y pues a tus clases, profe, yo no sé, es que tú explicas muy bien, o sea, a mí se me hizo que explicas súper bien, entonces cada vez que terminaba la lección, pues del curso como tal, y ya, o sea, habían algunas cosas que me faltaban por entender, pero cuando entraba a tus clases, pues tú respondías esas preguntas de una manera muy fácil y sencilla y también me gustó la dinámica que utilizaste como para tratar de enseñarnos los temas que venían en las lecciones.
Excelente. Listo, muy bien. Thank you so much. Sarita, ¿cómo te fue corriendo las últimas semanas?
Bueno, realmente sí fue muy estresante, pero igual siento que de por sí todo el curso me ayudó mucho a mejorar más la parte escrita,
Ujú.
eh, que era algo que, o sea, se me dificultaba mucho.
Ok.
Entonces, pues, realmente sí me ha ayudado mucho y más, aunque no estuve mucho tiempo, o sea, no estuve tanto en las clases como me gustaría, aún así aprendí mucho por medio de las clases grabadas, que ya están grabadas,
Ujú.
que la verdad realmente explicas muy bien. Entonces, pues no tenía muchas preguntas, sino veía videos y así. Pero igual me pareció súper bien. Y ya, muchísimas gracias.
No, Sarita, gracias a ti, muchas gracias por los comentarios. Thank you so much. And Alan, from one colleague to another colleague, my friend.
Yeah, I really believe that it is a whole process. And I didn't start with you this process. I have been from a long time learning things,
Mhm.
but I really believe that it is a whole difference having it clear where your bases are about. Because of I didn't have any kind of base related with the grammatical topics, and I haven't more and a practice. And I was really not done suffering, but I was really trying to face many kind of exams, having those errors, and it was so difficult to start overtaking and because of I didn't have the tools. But this course, I believe that it gave me the tools, and I'm so happy because of I've got all the abilities to start doing the
Mhm.
exams
Nice.
and continue the process not only for an exam, sino la confusión.
Vale.
For, for continue learning and approaching new skills.
Great, excellent. That's what we want to find out. That's what we want to get. Bueno, guys, thank you so much. Realmente les agradezco un montón todo el tiempo, todas las clases que asistieron, todas las participaciones, porque aunque fueron 6 meses, todos los cuatro empezaron desde B1. Al final de los 6 meses siento que obviamente ya las personas están cansadas porque no tenemos vacaciones, ¿no? Son 6 meses, pero desde el inicio hasta el final, una semana tras otra, una semana tras otra, una semana tras otra, actividad tras actividad, y es obviamente extenuante. Claro que debió haber sido muy estresante, por ejemplo, para Sara correr las últimas semanas, pero bueno, espero que realmente les haya pues digamos, uno, servido, obvio, y también gustado sobre todo porque pues o especialmente con los idiomas es algo que cuando a uno le gusta se facilita muchísimo más, ¿vale? Ahora, mi percepción es que yo creo que ustedes tienen un nivel excelente, pero muy, muy, muy bueno, los cuatro, ¿right? Y bueno, Paola, que también venía a veces, en general todo el grupo que inició en B1 tenía un muy buen nivel, pero digamos que los que terminaron terminan con un nivel excepcional. Entonces, a veces decimos como, se me dificulta todavía el grammar, se me dificulta esto, se me dificulta lo otro. Realmente esas dificultades son muy pequeñitas y si recordamos la clase que tuvimos sobre slang y standard English, realmente son cosas que no se notan y que no quisiera que les afectara su fluidez, porque tienen una fluidez excelente. Entonces, cuando hablen con alguien, cuando estén en el campo ya hablando con alguien, llámese británico, americano o cualquier otra nacionalidad que pueda hablar inglés, siéntanse confiados de que la persona les va a entender. No tengan miedo de cometer errores. Todas las personas en general, cuando estamos hablando inglés, cometemos errores, pero lo importante es no digamos, congelarnos o sentirnos mal por esos errores, porque eso sí nos puede afectar un poquito. Cuando yo me congelo y digo como, dije el verbo que no era, no, sino lo ideal es como obviar esos errores pequeños y continuar con el mensaje con naturalidad, ¿cierto? Entonces, como cuando uno va caminando y se tropieza, normal, uno sigue, como si nada hubiera pasado y así no llama tanto la atención, ¿cierto? Entonces, es normal que uno se cometa errores, pero es importantísimo que no nos dejemos afectar por esos errores y sobre todo que no pierdan, especialmente ustedes que tienen tan buen vocabulario y tan buena fluidez, su confianza en sí mismos al momento de hablar, ¿vale? Guys, de verdad disfruté mucho estos 6 meses con ustedes porque las clases más que una explicación eran como unas charlas de varios temas y pues las disfruté muchísimo, ¿vale? Entonces me facilitaron la vida un montón y de verdad también quiero agradecerles por eso y por la constancia de haber llegado hasta acá, hasta este punto, ¿vale? Y listo, guys. Entonces, bueno, en el chat les dejé el correo al cual tienen que enviar la solicitud para el examen Lingua Skill. Recuerden que tienen un mes después de terminar el curso. O sea, lo pueden enviar ya porque pues ustedes igual ya van a acabar todas las actividades o tienen hasta un mes después de que se haya acabado el curso, es decir, hasta septiembre 24, pero no dejen hasta esa fecha porque es como un intercambio de correos. Ustedes escriben un correo y ellos les devuelven otro correo con los horarios posibles y ustedes escogen ahí sus horarios para presentar los exámenes. Recuerden que el examen es desde su casita, tienen que instalar un software de seguridad en su computador, entonces pues es un proceso que no es imposible, pero tiene hartos pasitos, entonces tómense el tiempo de hacerlo a pues unos buenos días antes del 24 para que no vaya a haber problemas con eso. ¿Listo? ¿Guys, tienen alguna pregunta, algún comentario final? Anything?
Profe, una pregunta.
Cuenta.
¿Hay que enviar el email de cierta forma en específico o
No, dale, solo
no?
colocas que solicitas, que ya acabaste tus 5 niveles y que solicites la presentación del examen, del examen que viene incluido en tu paquete.
Listo, sí, señor.
Eso es, no es más. ¿Listo? Bueno, guys, un gustazo haberlos conocido. Tienen mi número, cualquier cosa que necesiten, ahí yo sigo en el mismo número, entonces cualquier cosa me escriben y por el momento, guys, nos veremos luego. Y nada, muchas gracias por todo, de verdad. Que tengan una buena semana, que les vaya muy bien en el examen, sobre todo, espero que les vaya muy, muy bien, porque esa certificación sí es una certificación internacional que les va a funcionar en varios lugares, entonces denla toda en el examen y nada, guys, mucha suerte y que Dios los bendiga, ¿vale?
Gracias,
Chao, profe,
profe.
muchísimas gracias.
Muchas
Que les vaya muy bien.
gracias.
Goodbye.
Chao.
Chao.